After hearing the whole story, James was about to have a mental breakdown. "Amelia, are you crazy?" Amelia sobbed uncontrollably. "Brother, I'm so scared. Sky contacted me. From what they said, they're going to hold me accountable. If things really get out of hand, how can I explain it to Mom and Dad? What should I do?" James had a splitting headache. "Calm down and stop crying first. What did they say to you?" Amelia sobbed and told James everything she could remember truthfully. The staff of Sky were very cold-hearted. They repeatedly asked Amelia if she had sold the same song twice. After Amelia repeatedly assured them that she hadn't, the caller asked Amelia not to leave the city for the time being. He felt that something was seriously wrong. Amelia burst into tears. "Brother, please help me. Go to Brother Oliver and ask him to put in a good word for me. I didn't steal it on purpose. I just liked it too much. As long as he doesn't pursue this and comes out to say that the song is his and saves me, I'll be fine." James looked ugly. "You stole his song and you still want me to talk to him?" Amelia's voice suddenly became shrill. "Brother, if you don't talk to Brother Oliver, I'll tell Uncle and the others." "What are you going to say?" Amelia spoke resolutely, even clenching her hand on the phone tightly. "Something has happened to me here. Dad will definitely ask me for details. At that time, I can only tell the truth about you and Brother Oliver." James felt a buzzing in his ears and trembled with anger. "Amelia." Amelia's voice softened and she pleaded pitifully. "Brother, you love me the most. Please help me this time, okay?" After hanging up the phone, James felt extremely upset. The codes in front of him turned into swarms of flying mosquitoes. With great difficulty, he endured until the morning work was over. He left the company and headed straight for the office building of Chin Group. However, one needed an independent elevator to reach Daniel's office. The receptionist said politely, "Do you have an appointment?" James gritted his teeth. Just as he was about to go out to find a restaurant and wait while eating, he suddenly saw a handsome young man in a woolen gray overcoat carrying a lunchbox walking in through the revolving door. When Andrew detected at home that James' remorse value had risen to 15, he said to 061, "Keep an eye on James' car GPS." As soon as the GPS moved, Andrew calculated the time and took a taxi from home to Chin Group. "I still need to meet him," Andrew said. "By the way, Oliver's car has been parked at James' place for a long time. I have to get it back." The young man was well taken care of at home. He didn't need to buy groceries and cook every day, so his skin had become fairer and rosier. Set off by the high-end smoky gray, he looked even more cold and alluring, keeping people at a distance. When Oliver saw James, he was stunned for a moment and let James play out his act of looking at him as if seeing him for the first time in a long while. After coming to his senses, he pretended not to know. James handed the lunchbox for Daniel to the receptionist and then turned around and walked outside. James quickened his pace and chased after him, catching up with Oliver. Oliver obediently stopped and pointed to a Hong Kong-style restaurant. "Let's go over there and talk. Don't let my brother see us." Oliver and James sat down and Oliver flipped through the menu to order food. Seeing his lover again, a smile welled up in James' eyes, but he also knew his purpose this time, so he couldn't help but feel a bit guilty. Andrew watched the regret value rise and soon it had exceeded 20%, but he remained calm. His psychological expectation for this visit was 40% and now it was only just over half. While waiting for the dishes to be served, James reached out and held Andrew's hand. "Oliver, I miss you." Andrew shivered and really wanted to vomit. In James' eyes, Oliver had tears in his eyes, which was really pitiful. Fortunately, James cared about his image. He just gave a light squeeze and then let go. He looked around to make sure no one had seen their intimate gesture just now, then relaxed his expression a bit and asked, "How have you been recently?" Oliver lowered his head and played with the knife and fork. "Not bad. I watched your live stream." "Really?" Oliver raised his voice slightly and a flash of surprise briefly appeared in his eyes, but then he seemed to remember something and lowered his head, saying, "My brother took my phone as soon as I got home." James said with pity, "I know. Your eldest brother has such a strong, controlling personality." Oliver looked up. "Don't talk about my brother." James smiled. Okay, let's not talk about him. Let's talk about our things." "Oliver, our things?" When Oliver was confused, he was so cute and soft, with a transparent film of water covering his eyes, which made James think of the little puppy his family had raised when he was a child. The appetizers were served, followed by the large yellow croaker in soup, shrimp paste stuffed chicken wings, and stir-fried Chinese kale. James and Oliver started eating face to face. Neither of them mentioned what had happened in the past few days. James told some interesting things that had happened to him at work, and Oliver also laughed a few times in response. But James didn't forget his purpose after all. When the dessert was served on the table, James said, "Do you know about Hazel's matter?" Oliver was silent. He dipped the hot and soft toast pieces into the vanilla ice cream with a fork and said, "Yes." When answering, Andrew specifically checked his phone. It was 12:20. After talking to him on the phone, Lucy asked for his Weibo password and planned to use the resources of the Public Relations Department to post a clarification Weibo for him. About 40 minutes ago, a few minutes before Oliver met James, that Weibo had already been sent. However, James hadn't touched his phone since he saw Oliver, so he probably still thought that Amelia had copied Oliver's original song. After James told the whole story, Andrew was sure that it was indeed the case. After finishing everything, James wanted to hold Oliver's hand again and said, "Oliver, help me and also help Amelia. Amelia came to the city to study, and my parents entrusted Amelia to me. If anything happens to Amelia, I can't explain it to my parents." Oliver hid both hands under the table and said, "But it's still my song after all." James said, "Didn't you just sing it in the live broadcast?" Oliver said, "It has been signed by Nebula." James frowned and said, "Why didn't you tell me about it? When did it happen?" Oliver lowered his head and said nothing. James asked again, "Has it been publicly released?" Oliver was shocked and looked up at him in disbelief. Thinking that Oliver didn't hear clearly, James repeated the question, "Has it been publicly published? What if it hasn't been publicly published?" Oliver gritted his teeth. "What do you want me to do?" James gently persuaded, "Oliver, don't misunderstand. I'm trying to find a way." "Oliver, what way?" "James, the matter of Amelia needs to be resolved. She's still a child." Andrew said to 061, "Oh, that's so pitiful." 061 said helplessly, "You don't sound sincere at all." Andrew said, "My emphasis is not on so pitiful, but on oh dot." After finishing the conversation with 061, Andrew put away all of Oliver's expressions and small gestures, leaned back on the sofa, and nodded coldly. Yes, a 19-and-a-half-year-old child, old enough to be executed for murder. Sensing his bad tone, James felt rather helpless. "Oliver, don't be petty." "Be petty?" Andrew raised an eyebrow. "I'm very busy. I don't have time to play lover games with you." "Oliver, do you need something from me?" "You." James took a long breath before barely calming himself down. "Oliver, we're all adults. We should prioritize things. As long as you can admit that you sold the song to Sky." Andrew was surprised and moved back a little so that his field of vision could accommodate this big face as round as a basin. He asked a very constructive question, "Why should I?" James said, "Amelia is still young. She can't bear such a serious responsibility." Andrew said, "That's good. I've signed a contract with Xinyun. How much are you going to pay me for the liquidated damages for selling one song twice and my loss of reputation?" "Oliver, you don't want to pay anything, right? The liquidated damages are mine and the loss of reputation is mine." "James, why should I help you explain?" The restaurant was fairly quiet and the argument caught the attention of many diners. James blushed with embarrassment. "Oliver, I know we had a fight before. Don't act like a child at this time." Andrew sneered, "Who do you think you are, making a sworn brotherhood with yourself?" James was losing face. "Oliver, this is a public place." Andrew said, "You've already shown your shamelessness openly. I don't think you're afraid of being in a public place." 061 stared in disbelief. "Wait, this script seems a bit off." He thought the script was that Oliver would act pitiful to arouse James' sympathy and increase his regret value. But this is clearly an act of tearing up the pretense. What surprised him even more was that while James' favorability towards Oliver was dropping rapidly, his regret value was rising instead. James looked extremely ugly. "Oliver, don't be so hostile. Your family's situation is much better than Amelia's." Andrew did some thinking. "So, just because my family is rich, I deserve to be plagiarized?" "You. I can't decide about my family's money. You should go to my brother." James' voice trembled. "Oliver, you're so cruel. You were the one who wanted to break up. If you want to take revenge on me, why ruin my sister's future? Did I tell her to steal?" Andrew suddenly raised his voice. "Did I force your sister's hand to steal?" Their previous conversations had been relatively quiet, but Andrew's preemptive move made the people around catch on to what was going on. Realizing that he had attracted too much attention, James panicked immediately. "You." Andrew stood up, leaned on the table with both hands, and approached James menacingly. His lips trembled and his eyes were filled with tears. She has to figure out what exactly she stole, and you, James, you have to realize that you're a fool. After saying that, he picked up the small trash can on the table and dumped it directly on James' head. Leftover fish soup, chicken bones, and fish bones dripped all over his head. Then Andrew took the car keys from his right side and left in a hurry. James struggled to chase after him, trying to grab Andrew, but was stopped by the waiter. "Sir, please pay the bill." James woke up as if from a dream. Looking back at the curious or contemptuous looks of the crowd, he felt his face burning hot. The kitchen waste flowing on his face stung his skin even more painfully. He embarrassedly took out his wallet and paid the bill in a hurry. By the time he chased out of the restaurant again, Oliver had disappeared along with the car. He was extremely angry. He kicked a tree by the road with one foot, hugged his head with both hands, paced back and forth a couple of steps, then he turned on his phone and wanted to call Oliver, but saw a Weibo post on the homepage that Oliver had sent 50 minutes ago. Oliver had long been set as a special follow by him, and any of his updates would be pushed to James. 50 minutes ago? Probably when they had just met. Somehow James clicked on this Weibo post. He couldn't understand it the first time. The second time he understood it, but also realized what the words Oliver had left behind when leaving meant. Actually, it wasn't Oliver's song, but a song by another person published 3 years ago. He just rewrote it at home and then sent the rewritten version to himself. As a result, it was by mistake stolen by Amelia. But why didn't he explain? James reviewed the whole process of their conversation and only then realized that he had been talking to himself the whole time. Oliver's outburst and becoming sharp-tongued also happened after he repeatedly asked him to take the blame for Amelia. James hugged his head painfully in the strong smell of fish soup. Andrew drove the car all the way home, humming a song from his own world line. Andrew commented, "It's so exciting to hit and run." 061 announced in surprise, "The regret value has reached 45. Andrew shifted gears, "I know." 061 checked the comments on Weibo again. "Your Weibo comments have exceeded 3,000. Andrew said, "By 6 o'clock tonight, it will definitely exceed 10,000. 061 began to analyze the current situation. "Now you've distanced yourself from it. For Hazel, if she admits to buying the song, the ultimate conclusion will be that Amelia plagiarized. Although Hazel will lose her image as a talented musical girl, she can still be considered a half-victim." Andrew said, "If she doesn't admit it, let the wrong party go after whoever's name is filled in the composer column. Will Sky definitely pursue the matter against Amelia? After all, this is a scandal. What if Sky chooses to suppress the news? Suppress it? Not pursue it?" Andrew laughed. "This isn't an ordinary scandal. Once a singer's plagiarism is confirmed, it'll be a lifelong stain. They'll only make a big deal out of it and pursue accountability. Amelia will receive a court summons as early as today or at the latest tomorrow. Even if James comes to plead with me again, he won't have a leg to stand on." 061 was now certain that Andrew really intended to abandon his emotional connection with James. He asked, "Are you afraid that falling out with him will lead to the failure of the mission?" Andrew asked, "Has it failed yet?" 61. "Are you taking a risk?" "Andrew, I'm conducting an experiment." "What experiment?" Andrew braked at the red light and smiled, saying, "You have to admit that it's not easy to get someone to admit their mistakes and then truly feel regretful." 061 nodded. Previously, none of his hosts could barely accumulate enough regret points without paying the price of their lives. Andrew said, "In comparison, it's simpler to just make him regret ever knowing me." Daniel had been busy all morning. He stopped working after his younger brother's lunchbox was sent up from downstairs. By the way, he browsed his younger brother's Weibo while having lunch. This browsing led to a problem. He called Oliver. Oliver didn't answer the first call. He contacted Lucy and got a general idea of what had happened. After confirming that his younger brother was just unlucky to be involved, he felt slightly relieved. He quickly finished the meal sent by his younger brother. It was only after more than half an hour that Oliver answered the phone when he called again. His tone was a bit tired as he said he was fine. Daniel said, "Come on, you can't be okay. Are you at home?" Oliver said, "I'm on my way home." Daniel said, "Go straight home and don't go anywhere. Wait for me to get home." He knew his younger brother wasn't the type to handle things well. When he went downstairs and was about to leave, the receptionist told him that a Mr. James had come to see him. Daniel asked when. The receptionist girl thought for a moment and said, "An hour ago when your younger brother came to deliver food." When he got home, Andrew locked himself in his room and pretended to be melancholy. Daniel arrived home almost at the same time as him. As soon as he entered the door, he rushed straight to Oliver's room. Andrew detailed James's shameless demands on him and selectively skipped his retorts. One could say he was very good at presenting the details. Before Daniel even finished listening, he rolled up his sleeves and planned to have a talk with James. Andrew pulled him back and said, "Brother, forget it." Daniel glared at him and said, "Forget what? Do you still plan to be with him?" Andrew lowered his head and said, "It would be meaningless for us to be together again like this." When his younger brother announced the breakup, Daniel was stunned for a moment. But he quickly seized the opportunity and angrily launched a 1,000-word personal attack on James, systematically arguing how James was unworthy of Oliver. At the end of the scolding, he still thought indignantly, "How dare you break up with my younger brother, you inexperienced thing." From this, it can be seen that Daniel was really very contradictory and double-standard. Afraid that Daniel would get a dry mouth from talking, Andrew timidly brought a glass of water to Daniel and flatteringly called him brother. "I made you worry." Daniel ruffled his younger brother's head like petting a golden retriever. He had a lot to say to him, but in the end, only one sentence came out. "Silly boy. Just sing your songs well." As Andrew had expected, the situation began to brew and ferment. By 1 hour before dinner, Andrew's clarification post on Weibo had been reposted 30,000 times and had over 10,000 comments. As for the official Weibo account of Hazel's studio, it was even more bustling. As soon as the studio's statement was issued, it was strongly refuted and the so-called leak of the music source became a joke. If the music source can leak all the way back to works released several years ago, Hazel, you have to choose between plagiarism and time travel. As for the marketing accounts involved in the plagiarism accusation, Sky spent a lot of money on public relations. Those who usually charge forward for Hazel in such hot topic events were as quiet as mice this time. Netizens who love to watch the drama called on him to speak up. It wasn't until Sky issued a news statement that everyone happily shifted their attention. In the new statement, the studio apologized to the public, saying that the 2 songs suspected of plagiarism were bought and posted screenshots of the relevant contracts. It also solemnly stated that it would hold the seller accountable and safeguard the creative rights of the original authors. Later, Hazel would hold a public apology press conference, asking fans to supervise, and so on. A few minutes after the news statement was issued, the plagiarized parties also issued a very official-sounding statement thanking Sky for clarifying the misunderstanding in a timely manner, and also stating that they would hold the plagiarists accountable to create a better environment for original music. Hazel's 5th anniversary of debut was in a complete mess. Some people firmly believed this explanation, while others scoffed at it. Andrew commented, "Sacrificing the pawn to save the king." 061 said, "It was predictable." Andrew was holding his phone and studying. Although the name of the song seller on the screenshot provided by Hazel's studio was pixelated, it was easy to guess which 3 characters were hidden under that blur. To save Hazel, Amelia might not even fully anticipate what she would have to sacrifice. Since they couldn't get the juicy drama of the 2 parties tearing each other apart, netizens said it was not exciting enough and started to dig into which of Hazel's songs were bought. This made Hazel's fans unhappy, and there was a big fight between passers-by and fans, which was quite a spectacle. The latter part of this drama had nothing to do with Andrew, so he was able to successfully disentangle himself and enjoy watching the show, feeling quite pleased. As he scrolled through the comments, he sighed and said, "Look, there are always some crazy fans in every fandom. I think they're practically wishing for their idol's downfall." 061 nodded in agreement and added, "A lot of the onlookers aren't innocent either. They don't really care about the truth. After they've had their fill of the gossip, they'll go somewhere else and spread it around, all in the name of entertainment. You know what? Even if the studio clarifies that it wasn't plagiarism, there'll still be people leaving comments accusing Hazel of plagiarism whenever she releases a new song. There definitely will be people scolding Hazel for plagiarism under her new song posts." Andrew laughed and said, "You seem quite affected by this." 061 said gently, "It's because of you that I feel this way." Andrew. Ha! Recently 061 watched all of Andrew's variety shows. In Andrew's world, one of his many black marks was being labeled as an illiterate. Once, during an interview, the host asked him which book he liked the most. Andrew replied, "Harry Potter." The host smiled and said that in previous interviews, guests always said they loved classic novels like Jane Eyre. Andrew was the first to openly admit his fondness for non-serious literature. Andrew shrugged and said, "There's nothing wrong with mentioning it." The host, "Then which character in it do you like the most?" Andrew, "Sirius Black." The host, "A popular character. Can you share the reason why you like him?" Andrew talked eloquently. During his 13 years in Azkaban, Black survived on the belief of avenging his friends. He had a tenacious will to live and was driven by love. He could even survive by eating rats. I like his ending. He fulfilled his wish, and as Harry's godfather, he'll always be with Harry. He gave Harry a home and they're together. The host started to sense something was off and interrupted Andrew, saying, "But Sirius died in the end." Andrew was clearly taken aback. "Died?" The host laughed and said, "Don't you even know how he ended up?" This mistake seemed to hit Andrew quite hard. He also appeared a bit distracted during the subsequent Q&A session and was clearly out of sorts. After this episode of the program was broadcast, a wave of ridicule arose. People said that Andrew was trying to create an image of a well-read person for himself, but unfortunately overdid it. In essence, he was indeed a good-for-nothing who couldn't even get into college. This piece of negative news was made into screenshots by someone with ulterior motives and was often used as an example when listing illiterate celebrities. 061 thought Andrew was very unjustly treated. He said, "Frankly, I can't imagine that someone would use Harry Potter to build an image of being knowledgeable, and I don't think the scholarships you got in high school for 3 years were fake. You probably just misremembered the details of the story and shouldn't be blamed like this." Andrew was unusually silent. After a while, he said, "I'm a public figure. Whether it's positive or negative, dealing with public opinion is a compulsory course for me." 061 said, "If I had been there at that time." Just then, 061 suddenly stopped speaking. Andrew laughed. "It would have been great if you had been there. You could have helped me delete posts for free. My annual public relations fees start at 1 million and Sam is going crazy with worry." Sam is Andrew's agent. Hearing this, 061 smiled with pursed lips. "Because you always cause trouble." Actually, what 061 wanted to say just now was that if he had been there at that time, at least there would have been a friend to accompany and comfort him. As far as he knew, Andrew had few friends in the entertainment circle. On the one hand, he had a high starting point and a solitary personality and didn't like to make friends with people in the circle. On the other hand, as an actor, he had an unruly personality and caused a lot of trouble, which made people in the circle keep their distance from him. The reason he didn't say it was that 061 remembered the previous incident of being formatted by the chief deity. After being formatted, all of 061's system friends advised him not to be too open-hearted with others. Although having a good relationship with the host was beneficial for task execution, it was too easy to cause unknown troubles. Thinking like this, although he really admired Andrew, it was better to avoid getting too close. While the man and the system were chatting, Lucy called and asked if he was available tomorrow. If so, she asked him to go to the Nebula music department. Their preliminary work was ready and they could start recording the master tape. Andrew was on the phone when he suddenly heard 061 say, "Huh." He remained calm and didn't ask until he hung up the phone, "What's up?" 61 The chief deity asked me to return to Instant for 3 hours after receiving the notice. Andrew, the chief deity. Instant? 061 explained in a simple way, "The chief deity is my immediate superior. Instant is his office." Andrew understood and waved his hand, saying, "Go ahead. There's nothing serious here with me." 061 said, "The chief deity stipulates that the system can only return to the space when the host's brainwaves enter a stable state, that is, after the host falls asleep. In the case of such a sudden summons, another system needs to take over to ensure the rights and interests of the host." Andrew asked, "Take over? Which one?" 061 couldn't help smiling a little. "You know him. It's 009. Andrew recalled for a moment. "Oh, that copywriter with a dream of being a gourmet." 061 said, 009 is a good kid, just a bit noisy." After explaining things to Andrew, 061 accepted the teleportation and instantly fell silent. There was a moment of silence in Andrew's head. Then a vibrant young AI voice sounded, "Host number 1198. I'm system number 009, and I'm here to serve you wholeheartedly." Andrew, "Hello." 009, "Hello. Have you had your meal? Can I have dinner with you?" Andrew, "That's too direct." 009 said embarrassedly, "I've heard 061 mention many times that you cook delicious food. I've always wanted to try it. Andrew. He mentioned it many times? 009 fell into a subtle silence for a moment and then simply skipped this question. He pleaded, I promised to take over 10 night shifts for 089 to get this chance to take over through the back door. Andrew asked, Who is 089? 009 replied, Our random system. Andrew thought he should give him a chance. Look at how eager the kid is. Father Chung, Stella, was not at home. After comforting his younger brother, Daniel rushed back to the company to handle affairs. Only Emma was left at home. The main body of 009 is a young man in white clothes and black pants. Judging from his appearance, he is about 18 years old. He is not very tall, but he has long and slender limbs. He also wears a pair of black framed glasses on his face, looking very literary and well-behaved. Emma saw 009 and asked, Oliver, who is this? Andrew said naturally, He's my junior. He came to see me and specifically wants to taste my cooking. Emma, stop being busy and go rest. As he spoke, Andrew pulled out a dining chair, wanting 009 to sit at the table. But 009 followed Andrew into the kitchen like a little tail and said, I want to watch you cook. Emma had heard Daniel mention it briefly and knew what had happened online today. She thought 009 had come to comfort Oliver, so she smiled gratifyingly. She was clumsy with words and didn't understand music. Now that there was a kind-looking and well-behaved young man to accompany Oliver, Oliver would feel better. After getting Emma out of the way, Andrew stood by the chopping board, chopping vegetables noisily, and said, I remember 061 told me that it's against the rules for a system to take on a physical form in reality. 009 asked cautiously, Will you report me? Andrew raised an eyebrow. Maybe. 009 thought with a worried face for a while, touched his stomach, and finally made up his mind. Well, let's eat our fill first. Andrew sighed that he was really a foodie with ideals and a sense of responsibility, probably afraid of being reported. As soon as the dishes were served, 009 started to gobble them up, as if he wanted to eat his fill to make it worth it. Andrew was curious. Is it okay for your system to eat? 009 took a hot sip of the ham and bamboo shoot soup and smacked his lips at the delicious taste. It turns into data after I eat it. A belly full of zeros and ones. Andrew, high-end operation, high-end operation. He picked up a chopstick of black pepper beef cubes for 009 and said, I heard from 061 that you're a primitive AI, innate data. 009 held the chopsticks and nodded. Then you should know a lot about the chief deity, right? 009, I'm just a copywriter. I don't know much about the chief deity. Andrew said, if you don't know much about the chief deity, you should still be well informed. You've worked in various departments of the chief deity, haven't you? 009 was shocked, with his almond-shaped eyes wide open. How do you know? Andrew said, I saw that you're quite at bribing people. You must have done a lot of favors for others to get substitute work opportunities and come out for a meal, right? 009 scratched his head, showing 2 dimples when he smiled. He was as sweet as an orange-flavored gummy. If we're talking about who is the most well-informed, it must be 023. But I'm not bad either. Andrew leaned towards him and said, I have a few questions. I've wanted to ask since I came in, but I didn't have a chance to talk to the chief deity. I think 061 isn't an innate data, so he may not know some things clearly. Maybe it'll be faster to ask you. One should not speak ill of the hand that feeds one. Moreover, 009 loves chatting with people, so he said generously, go ahead and ask. As long as I know and it doesn't involve the confidentiality agreement, I'll tell you. I think your chief deity supervisor is quite interesting. Andrew asked, as his subsystems, do you work voluntarily? 009 was biting a piece of sweet and sour spare rib and didn't quite understand what Andrew meant. Andrew simplified the question, what benefits do you get from working? 009 smiled, I'm an original data serving the people. But for someone like Brother 061, they all have task target quotas. I remember Brother 061 told me that his task target is 200 times. The world you're in now is his 101st task. What happens after successfully completing a task? 009 shook his head, I don't know about this. but I've worked as a substitute in the system's logistics support department. I know that people like 061 have all signed contracts with the chief deity. Oh, in your words, it's a labor contract. Andrew was quite interested. What's the content of the contract? 009 was munching on the spare rib with relish. I'm also curious about this. I even secretly checked, but I don't have such high-level access rights. Andrew said, I have a few more questions. 009 puffed out his thin little chest. Go ahead and say. Andrew asked, you shuttle through various world lines. What's the driving force for your operation? Why does the chief deity do all these? He asked, how do you choose test targets? Are there any conditions? Why did you choose me? And why did you choose Oliver? He then asked, also, after I complete the mission and leave, what will happen to the mission target? 009 stared blankly, and a half-eaten braised spare rib fell from the corner of his mouth. 061 came out of the instant and went to 023's office. That optical brain still had undulating waves glistening with an electroplated sheen. Tiny data streams flowed through it, occasionally colliding to create a spark. 023 was sitting in front of the optical brain, playing the Pac-Man game that 061 had brought last time. The room was filled with the chirping sounds of the little Pac-Man eating beans. His albino silver hair was cut short and permed into curls. 061 greeted him, new hairstyle? 023 squinted at him and said, why did you come at this time? 61, the chief deity is looking for me. 23, what did the brain flower ask you? The chief deity was indeed a huge brain-shaped creature. Different from the formless optical brain guarded by 023, it had a physical body, wriggling grotesquely with synapses and nerves like an ancient giant's brain being cultivated in a laboratory. Of course, it did look quite like the brain flower that hot pot lovers liked the most. 023 fiddled with the game console and said, are you afraid he'll hear? My office is separated from the instant by 60 rooms. Moreover, our initial data contains privacy agreements and firewall agreements. Even the chief deity has no right to invade our privacy. 061 said helplessly, it's okay to say it in front of me. But since you mentioned the brain flower to 009 last time, his look at the chief deity during meetings has been strange. 023 rolled his eyes and said, what did he call you for? 061 smiled slightly and said, good news. The chief deity asked about my recent work and said he hopes I'll participate in an expansion plan for a new service project. 23, benefits? 61, the upper limit of the number of missions to be executed is reduced to 120 times. After asking about the benefits, 023 then asked, what's the content? 061 shook his head and said, I don't know. Don't know? I haven't signed the contract yet. The chief deity said it was just to give me a heads up and would inform me when the plan was launched. What about the general situation of the experiment? The chief deity said that it won't violate the space laws and the existing basic treaties. 120 times. It's quite a generous offer. 023 coughed, put down the game console, stretched his body and moved his joints. Then, seemingly intentionally or unintentionally, he asked, how are you getting along with Andrew now? 061 intuitively felt that 023's way of asking was a bit strange, but he probably thought 023 was worried that he was getting too close to the host, so he didn't think too much about it. He objectively evaluated, the relationship is okay. 023 casually responded without interest, humph. 061 gave a gentle smile and said, hey, you're the one who asked, but your reaction is so cold. 23, I'm just asking casually. What do you want me to say? 61, for example, ask me what I'm here for? 023 raised one eyebrow and asked, what are you here for? 061 said, the complete works of Harry Potter. Please. A few minutes later, 061 checked the database and said, received. Thank you. 023 spread out his palms and said, where's my reward? 061 rummaged in his arms and threw over a small pack of cookies baked by Andrew. 23, really? Do you think I'm 009? 061 said, I came in a hurry this time. I'll make it up next time. 023 snorted discontentedly but let it go. After 061 left, 023 picked up the cookie bag with a piping nozzle and the game console and casually put them on the ground. He crossed his legs, sat on the chair, and then lifted the thin tabletop to reveal the secret inside the table. Inside was a set of densely interlaced communication lines with hundreds of them crisscrossing. The blue light was like a sea, making the fine data light flow in 023's eyes even clearer. He deftly picked out 70 or 80 communication lines showing the online status from inside and connected them to his skull one by one. Immediately afterwards, a chat channel flashed in front of him and the channel name was Me and 367 Big Fools. 2-3, there's good news. Do you want to hear it? 011, speak. 182, speak. 1999, 089, 23, I remember telling you many times to change your name. 089, every time I see the name of this channel I want to go to your office and beat you to death. The people in the channel were joking around and in a blink of an eye 023's voice message was pushed out of sight. After scrolling through 100 or so messages, someone finally said something reasonable. 139, I just saw 061 leaving your room. 139, so is it something related to 061? 139, related to Andrew? 089, almost. 061 was just called by the chief deity. 2-3, insider information. He got a good benefit and has a chance to go back early. The upper limit of his mission times has been reduced to 120. 131, really? Can he go back? Great. 015, fireworks, 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 177, it's really good news. 1112, yeah, I thought it was just 023 bluffing again and wouldn't be able to say anything good in the end. 2-3, 1112, if you don't want to download small movies in the future, don't speak so indirectly. 1112. Dad. 1112, Dad, do you think my kneeling posture is standard? 2-3, well, it's okay. 089, white hair, I remember you used to be the least supportive of 061 and Andrew. 2-3, that was before. It's different now. 1999, yeah. Can 200 missions be the same as 120? 061 has been here for 12 years, never taking a public holiday, and has only just managed to complete over half. 2-3, I used to think that Andrew wouldn't wait for him and he didn't need to hold on to an illusory hope and continue. It would be good to just forget about Andrew. 2-3, but if he succeeds in that plan and finishes guiding Andrew, he'll be busy for at most another 4 or 5 years and then he can return to his original world line. 131. However, will Andrew choose to return to his original world line? 131. All the hosts I've guided initially wanted to go back, but in the end, none of them were willing to return to their original worlds. They all chose one of the 10 mission worlds they liked the most. 131. What if he's the same as the others? 131. Also, now 061 doesn't remember anything. Even if he returns to his original world, does he know who to look for? 131. We're restricted by the confidentiality agreement and can't tell him anything about Andrew. Even slightly mentioning that incident back then might result in complete blocking. 089. Everyone was chatting happily. Why do you talk so much? 089. Can someone do a good deed and shut this pessimist up? 1999. I live next to 131. I'll go. 023, who was excitedly following the situation in the channel, suddenly heard a knock on the door. It was too late to forcefully log off. So 023 and 061 faced each other, staring blankly at each other. With a mess of optical cables sticking out of his head, 023, with a thick skin and a calm heart, was as calm as ever. Why did you come back? 061 asked him, gossiping again? 023 denied, I'm not that bored. I didn't. Don't talk nonsense. Leaning against the doorframe, 061 laughed and said, okay, not bored. I came back on purpose to tell you that if you don't want to eat the cookies, share them with everyone. Don't waste them. Looking at the cookie bag, 023 replied concisely, yeah. 061 added, also, the chief deity said that the plan is not a confidential project. But since the plan is not fully formed yet, it needs internal testing, and for now, I'm the only one selected for the quota. 023 raised his snow-white eyebrows and said, what do you mean by that? Do you think I'm the kind of person who gossips? 061 smiled and said, well, of course you're not. I'm just worried that with this special case, others might feel uncomfortable. 023 said coldly, don't worry. Even if there's only one quota left to break away from the chief deity, I'm afraid no one will compete with you. Everyone knows how long you've been waiting. Even though you don't even know who you're waiting for now, as friends for so many years, everyone remembers it for you. 061 nodded politely and said, thank you. 023 waved his hand, signaling him to leave. After 061 really left, 023 checked the channel and found that everyone was already discussing going to watch the rumored Andrew in a group. After watching for a while, 023 reluctantly closed the communication channel, picked up the cookie bag, and went to distribute the cookies to the system employees at home one by one. With a click, the door of room 1008 closed. Only the data in the optical computer was still surging, casting alternating light and shadow on the empty desktop. Gradually, a bulge appeared on the optical computer. The bulge slowly took shape. At first, it was like an uneven sarcoma, and finally it turned into a human face. The human face had no mouth or nose, only distinct eyes and ears. The whole optical computer and the room began to deform, making a rustling sound. On the surface of the optical computer, the floor and the walls, 1,000 sarcomas and 1,000 human faces emerged, with well-developed eyes and ears, silently watching and listening to what had happened in the room just now. For a moment, the clean and dust-free data transfer station turned into a flesh-filled space full of eyes and ears. If someone were to enter the room at this moment, they would surely be greatly startled. Soon, 023 returned to the room. He casually pushed the ajar door, and the sarcoma, like human face attached to the back of the door, slowly moved along with the door. But what greeted 023's eyes was a perfectly normal data station. The entire room had returned to normal, and the optical brain still emitted a gentle, mottled light, as if the strange scene just now was nothing but a dream bubble. And all the images and all the sounds were transmitted to the chief deity, instant 60 rooms away. The dark, red giant brain wriggled under the towering dome, and on the wall of instant, there was a huge data board inlaid. In the past, this data board would display numerous red and blue data changes, rising and falling like tides. But today, only the information of one person remained on the data board. The data information of host number 1198 has been detected. Host Andrew, male, 26 years old, 181 centimeters tall, and weighs 64 kilograms. Current data: the favorability value is 46, and the regret value is 46. The former shows a downward curve, while the latter shows an upward curve. The red meter bar representing the favorability value and the blue meter bar representing the regret value were not much different from the display on Andrew's personal data disk. However, in addition to these two data items, there was an extra black meter bar on the data board of instant. When scanning this item, the androgynous AI mechanical voice suddenly raised its volume. Warning, warning. An abnormal entropy value of host number 1198 has been found. The entropy value is abnormal and far lower than the average data. Please pay attention. After a moment of pondering, a command came from the undulating cerebral cortex. Where is the peak point of the entropy value? After a series of calculations, the system presented a video on the data board. It was when Andrew first saw James. The man leaning against the car was slightly stunned when he saw the person coming. Just at the moment of seeing that face, Andrew's entropy value fluctuated significantly. But after that, Andrew's entropy value bar became stagnant. No matter how much James dangled in front of him, it no longer caused any fluctuations. After watching the video, the chief deity remained silent. After a long time, he issued the second command. The command was drawn out in tone with an indescribable sense of eeriness in the casualness. Continuously monitor the entropy situation of Andrew. If the situation remains unchanged, appropriately increase the difficulty of World 2. If the situation persists, prepare to involve 061 in the plan. 061 returned to the transfer point and sent a docking signal to 009. As soon as 009's figure appeared, like a chick seeing an old hen, he threw himself into 061's arms, causing 061 to stagger backward. 061 stroked his head. "What's wrong?" 009 trembled and said, "Brother 061, Andrew told me ghost stories." 61. The time limit for the docking and shift change was extremely short. Before 061 could find out what had happened to 009, he was forcibly teleported back. That gentle and slightly questioning reached Andrew's ears, making his ears tingle. After dinner, Andrew had already returned to his bedroom. He put down the teacup. "You're back?" 061 asked. "How is 009's work situation?" "I don't know about his work situation, but he ate quite well." Andrew said, I made 4 dishes and 1 soup and he finished them all. Not even a drop of soup was left. 061 said rather helplessly. Well, he has a big appetite. During the spring festival when we make dumplings, he can eat 160 of them. He thought that maybe 009 was too shy during their first meeting and didn't show his real eating capacity. I didn't entertain well. 061 asked him, I heard from 009 that you told him ghost stories. Andrew said calmly, I didn't. I just asked him a few questions. 061 thought about it and felt that it made sense. Actually, Andrew is also afraid of ghosts himself. Andrew was about to pick up the teacup again, but just as his fingers touched the handle, the whole cup was decomposed into data with a faint shadow. He reached out and grasped at nothing with a slightly startled expression. 061 especially liked the childishness that Andrew, such a rational and sober person, unconsciously showed. His voice even showed a bit of a smile. It's time to go to sleep. Don't drink this. Andrew bargained with him. I want to see if Hazel Studio will announce Amelia's name tonight. 061 said, you have to record a song tomorrow. You need to get enough rest to be energetic. Andrew still didn't give up. He smiled mischievously and played the rascal. I can catch up on sleep in the car. 061 said, I can cut off your power and internet. Andrew said, all right, dormitory supervisor. You win. 061 smiled, dear student, please go wash up and go to bed quickly. Andrew was about to stand up and casually asked, what book is the dormitory supervisor going to read tonight? 061 replied, Harry Potter. Andrew suddenly fell silent. He remained in a half-standing position and said, choose another one. Andrew's expression made 061 think that he might not have handled this matter well this time. However, since he had an idea in mind, there was no need to ask further. 061 nodded and readily changed his words. Then let's continue reading Chow Fong Zi, The Straw House. After arranging Andrew to go to sleep, 061 opened Harry Potter, used keywords to search, and selectively read the plots related to Sirius Black. At about 2 o'clock in the morning, Andrew staggered out of bed. 061 thought he was going to the toilet, but he walked straight to the small sofa and curled himself up in it. Just now, 061 was so engrossed in the book that he didn't notice Andrew's condition. It was not until now that he found that Andrew's pajamas were completely soaked with sweat and stuck to his body, clearly outlining the slender ribs of Oliver's body. He didn't close the window before going to bed. At this time, the wind was picking up outside, and the curtains were filled with wind, rising and falling. Andrew looked at the outline of the wind, momentarily in a daze, and softly said, Lucas, the wind is blowing outside. Just as his voice was about to fade, the window slowly closed. 061's voice sounded, don't be afraid. Closed it. You're sweating too much. You can't catch a cold now. Andrew said, I know it's you. 061 softly asked, did you have a nightmare? Andrew replied to him, it was a good dream. It was indeed a good dream. The clattering sound of mahjong came from the first floor. The women shouted out chow, pong, and ready in shrill voices, as if this could bring them good luck in the game. The men were bare-chested, enjoying the cool. In their conversations, oil and war seemed closely related to them. They were fanning themselves with palm leaf fans and munching on sunflower seeds. Everyone had their own mirage. Upstairs, Andrew was lying in bed, with him and Lucas at opposite ends. A hot wind blew outside, making the window creak. The wind carried the damp smell of earth and brought in a dark cloud. It was going to rain. Andrew said, Lucas, the wind is blowing outside. Lucas looked up from the book and out of the window. It's going to rain. Andrew didn't care whether it was going to rain or not. He deliberately kicked the spine of the book in Lucas's hand with his foot, looking at him eagerly and asking him to continue reading. What happened next? What happened to Black later? The book was in a shabby state, but Lucas had carefully covered it with a snow-white book cover. Lucas's long, clean fingers stroked over it, looking very well matched. He cast his eyes back on the book again, with a somewhat complicated expression. After a moment, he closed the book, sat up on the bed, and said, it's too late today. I have to go back. I'll tell you tomorrow. Andrew said, "Leave the book with me. I'll read it myself." Lucas smiled. There was a sparkle in his eyes when he smiled. "Leave the book with you, and will you still sleep tonight? Stop joking." Andrew got anxious and also got up from the bed. "Will he be with Harry? Who are you asking about?" "Sirius. What do you think?" Andrew frowned. "Of course they have to be together. They must be together. He needs Harry and Harry needs him too. But I just have a feeling that he will die." Lucas put the book into his school bag. "Don't worry, he won't die." Andrew, "Really?" Lucas said, "Really. I've read the later parts. He didn't die. He's fine." In the subsequent plot, Sirius indeed didn't die. He even appeared in the following plot as witty and considerate as ever. Although Lucas died in a fall before the next book in the Harry Potter series came out, for many years after that, in Andrew's mind, Sirius was still that young man who had weathered the storms but still had bright eyes. It wasn't until that interview program that he was told that Black was dead. He fell into the veil in front of Harry and disappeared without a trace. They couldn't even find his body. Those companionships through life and death and the happy ending were the stories that Lucas wrote for him in an imitated, translated style writing. Not everyone you like will survive. Lucas didn't want Andrew to understand this truth so early, but later Andrew still understood it. Back to the present. 061 didn't say a word, leaving him enough time to be silent. Andrew put a toothpick in his mouth and thought about his own affairs. 061 watched Andrew's actions and his mind stirred slightly. As far as he knew, Andrew had a habit of smoking. Although he wasn't addicted, he preferred to hold a cigarette when he entered a state of deep thought. Of course, the Chin family was not short of good cigarettes for guests, but since Andrew became Oliver, in order to protect his voice, except for taking a couple of puffs when testing James, he hadn't touched a cigarette again. Thinking of this, 061's heart became extremely soft. He endured and restrained himself like this, but when he was anxious, there was no friend to accompany him. While Andrew was in a daze, he didn't notice the slight data flow beside him at all. 061's figure changed from illusory to real and stood beside Andrew. That lonely soul curled up inside Oliver, quietly, only the toothpick in his mouth made a continuous creaking sound as he bit it. He reached out his hand towards Andrew's shoulder, wanting to comfort him as a new friend. But he only reached halfway and then retracted his hand. Only a trace of the remaining data stream silently merged into Andrew's shoulder and disappeared. Fortunately, 061 remembered in time Andrew's aversion to physical contact and avoided a possible trouble. Andrew seemed to sense something and turned his head to look. All he saw was the room immersed in darkness. Before he could turn back, the toothpick in his mouth disappeared out of thin air and was replaced by a sweet strawberry fragrance. Andrew let out a soft grunt and spat out the thing in his mouth. A lollipop. Andrew knew exactly who was playing tricks and couldn't help laughing. "I'm not a child." 061 said, "What's the difference in what you hold in your mouth?" Andrew thought it made sense and stuffed the lollipop back in, licking it slowly. He asked, "Where did you get this lollipop?" 061 said, "I exchanged it for James' favorability points." Andrew was licking the lollipop and criticized 061, saying Teacher 6 is leading the way in violating the rules. There's no professional ethics. 061 gave a light cough and cooperated with his act, saying, "Professional ethics is for students. Only you are my student." Andrew was very touched. Just as he was about to express his emotions, he heard his respected 6-6 say, "Brush your teeth after eating. Hurry up and take another nap." Andrew didn't really want to sleep and continued to slowly lick his lollipop. 061 watched him eating the candy and his face actually gradually turned hot. Andrew seemed not to know how to eat the candy properly. He licked and bit the little candy stick. Especially his look when he switched back to the careless mode, combined with his actions, exuded an indescribable allure. A perfectly good piece of candy fell into Andrew's hands and could be said to have suffered a lot of humiliation. 061 couldn't stand it anymore and said, "Eat properly." But Andrew was quite unaware of his own performance. He took the sucked, transparent candy out of his mouth and said, "Huh? Forget it as long as he remembers to brush his teeth." It wasn't until he got up the next morning that Andrew refreshingly opened his phone and only then discovered that he had missed a big drama last night. The identity of the plagiarist was dug out. The reason for the extremely fast exposure was mainly due to Amelia. Amelia was a somewhat well-known songwriter online. With her vain nature, the fact that her song was bought by Sky was enough for her to brag about for a year. The new song has been sold. Finally, I have the money to buy the little dress I've been longing for, heart, heart, heart. The posting time of this Weibo was the same day as the contract date provided by Sky. It's still in production. I don't know when I'll be able to hear the finished product. Looking forward to it. On the same day, Hazel posted a Weibo and shared a picture of herself in the recording studio. In addition, she retweeted Hazel's lottery Weibo for her 5th anniversary of debut and even commented under Hazel's Weibo about the release of her new album, Finally Heard It. Although it wasn't specified who she sold her new song to, when you follow the timeline, all the clues point to her. There are always idol people in this world. Hazel's fans are eager to find the person who made their idol bear the reputation of plagiarism and condemn them. Moreover, Hazel's agency, Sky, naturally wants to divert everyone's attention elsewhere. Just like that, Amelia was exposed. Since her name had already been made public, Hazel's studio decided to strike while the iron was hot and updated their Weibo again, releasing the lawyer's letter they had finalized overnight. The name of the defendant was clearly Amelia. Seeing the flying conclusive evidence screenshots, Andrew insincerely said, "Congratulations, you've become an instant sensation and debuted in the C position." He knew too well that among these condemning people, very few were truly angry about the plagiarism. Netizens want excitement and the studio wants profit, so Amelia has to be sacrificed. Of course, if she brought this on herself, she can't blame others. Andrew actually left her a way out in his scheme. As long as she didn't reach out to steal, no matter how ingenious Andrew's scheme was, she wouldn't have gotten caught. Early in the morning, Amelia's phone rang. She had stayed up until the early hours of the morning last night and only managed to fall asleep reluctantly. She didn't know that she had been thoroughly exposed online. She answered the phone sleepily. "Hello?" A gentle male voice came from the other end of the phone. "Excuse me, is this Amelia, Ms. Amelia?" Amelia looked at her phone and found it was an unknown number. She thought it was the courier for the package she had bought a few days ago and muttered to herself about how early it was delivered. "Just leave it at the door." "Ms. Amelia, this is Dingshan People's Court in Yunjing City," the caller said. "There is a civil case related to you and it will be heard on January 10th. Please come to Dingshan People's Court in time to pick up the court summons." Amelia hung up the phone before he could finish speaking. A moment later, the phone rang again. She hung up the phone again and frantically blocked this number. "Summons? What summons? A summons from Sky? Did they really sue me?" With trembling hands, she wanted to check the trends of Sky Studio on Weibo. However, as soon as she entered Weibo, a flood of private messages and comments crashed her phone. "Did you feel any remorse today? Disgusting thief. The industry is ruined by people like you." After reading just 2 messages, Amelia exited Weibo, trembling with panic. How did they find out it was me? And that summons? No, she wouldn't accept it. She couldn't accept it. As long as she didn't accept it, it would be okay. If she didn't go, they couldn't hold the court session and maybe she could get away with this. When she was a child, when she went to others' homes and broke something, as long as she quietly took the thing away or simply hid, nothing would happen. Amelia didn't dare to wake up her roommates still sleeping in bed. With tears in her eyes, she slipped out of bed, crouched into the toilet, and dialed James' phone number. As soon as she spoke, she burst into tears. "Brother, what did Brother Oliver say? Did you find him? Did he agree to help me? Please save me quickly." In the morning, when Andrew was having breakfast, Amelia called directly. Seeing that Andrew didn't intend to answer the call, Daniel asked, "Who is it?" Andrew muted his phone and stuffed it into his pajama pocket, a real estate salesman. When he went back to his room to change clothes and took out his phone to check, there were already more than a dozen missed calls and line messages on it. "Brother Oliver, are you there?" Brother Oliver, answer the phone. Please answer the phone. You're the only one who can help me. I shouldn't have taken your things. I know I was wrong. Can you forgive me this time? Andrew entered the cloakroom with his phone in hand. Apart from having extremely poor taste in men and really needing some eye drops like syrup in to clear her vision, Oliver had a bit of a literary and fresh-looking taste. The cloakroom was well stocked and it wasn't difficult to put together a decent outfit. While selecting clothes from the wardrobe, Andrew typed a reply to Amelia, "What you took wasn't mine." Having received Andrew's reply, Amelia was overjoyed and immediately called. Andrew answered the phone and said in a flat tone, "It wasn't convenient to answer the phone just now. What's the matter?" Hearing Oliver's voice, Amelia's heart was filled with a burning hope. "Brother Oliver, I know about the matter between you and my brother. Please don't quarrel because of me. It's my fault and has nothing to do with my brother." Andrew said, You're overthinking. You're not that important. Amelia was taken aback and asked cautiously, Brother Oliver, are you still angry with me? Andrew asked, what should I be angry about? Sensing that Andrew's attitude was off, Amelia became even more flustered and pleaded with a sob in her voice, I didn't do it on purpose. I just took it because I liked it so much. I didn't know you got the song from someone else. Andrew calmly placed the selected clothes and pants on the bed and then went to pick a hat. Your words are inaccurate. When I get a song from someone else, I adapt it. When you get a song from someone else, you sell it. I'm taking while what you did is stealing. Amelia couldn't hold back her sobs and kept pleading, Brother Oliver, don't say angry words. Let's have a good talk about this. Andrew said, why do you think it's useful to come to me? It's Sky who wants to sue you, not me. Amelia was in tears, Brother Oliver, please plead with Sky for me. Even if you're angry with me, at least consider your friendship with my brother. As he was speaking, Andrew had finished selecting his clothes, shoes, and socks. He thought there was no need to waste more time with Amelia, so he interrupted her emotional outpouring. Do you regret it? Amelia nodded repeatedly and admitted her mistake. Yes, I regret it. Andrew's cold laugh came through the receiver, making Amelia's scalp tingle. After the incident was exposed, you first sent James to talk to me while hiding behind. You only came to me when the truth couldn't be hidden. I guess it's because Sky's subpoena has arrived that you can't sit still, right? Amelia couldn't even bear to hear the word subpoena and almost screamed, no, it's not. You haven't approached Sky because you hoped I'd step in and negotiate with Sky. In the end, you still want to hide behind and let others handle everything for you. Your brother says you're young, but you're really good at scheming. All the fig leaves were torn off. Amelia was left speechless with a stinging, itchy feeling on her back like an ant nest had exploded and cold sweat dripping from her joints. Andrew made a judgment. You're not truly regretful for what you've done wrong. You just regret getting caught. He hung up the phone and started getting dressed. Due to different growth environments, when encountering things, people's mental states and perceptions are naturally different. The growth environment of Amelia and James is an overly narrow and closed social circle. In this circle, people see each other frequently and human relationships prevail. If someone makes a request and the other party is unwilling to agree or fails to meet it, a big label of being heartless or being inhumane can weigh a person down so much that they can't even leave the house. They've been educated like this since childhood. Therefore, in their minds, sentiment and duty are exactly the same thing. Soon, James, who has a sentimental bond with him, called, Oliver, let's have a talk. Andrew said, I have something to do and need to go out. I'll give you 3 minutes. James said bitterly, Oliver, don't be like this. Andrew finished tying his small tie. You've got 2 minutes and 54 seconds left. James realized that Andrew was serious. He didn't dare to waste time. After adjusting his emotions, he pleaded earnestly, Amelia is just a child and still a student. You should allow her to make mistakes, right? Everyone makes mistakes in their lives. Why do you have to write her off completely? If she's really sued, what if the school holds her accountable, gives her a demerit, or even expels her? Won't her life be ruined? James continued, she loves music just like you. Since childhood, she's liked waving a twig around and saying she wants to be a conductor in the future. It was not easy for her to get into school from our place. If she can't get her diploma, her father will take her back to do farm work and marry her off when she reaches the right age. Then she'll never be able to return to the city and fulfill her dream. Oliver, you love music too. You should understand how she feels, right? James said all this in a compassionate and highly misleading way. Even those who stand on Andrew's side might be swayed after hearing such a description. After all, no one wants to be the sinner who ruins someone's life. James waited for Oliver's reply. He knew that Oliver was not a hard-hearted person. But what he didn't know was that the kind-hearted Oliver was no longer there. Indirectly stabbed countless times by this brother and sister, bleeding for years, he died of depression. So, the only thought Andrew had about this heartfelt speech was that it sounded like lines from a sad drama. Andrew said, James, you spoke very well, but you've got the wrong person. Hearing him say this, James's hopeful heart was like a balloon that had been pricked by a needle and deflated. Andrew gave him a suggestion. You should go to Sky's legal department. Maybe they'll be touched by you and kindly agree not to pursue the matter. James said disappointedly, Oliver, how could you become like this? Andrew checked his watch, found that exactly 3 minutes had passed, and then hung up the phone. Andrew said, I feel so mean. 6-1. Clearly looking delighted. The regret value rose and directly exceeded 50%. Naturally, Andrew was delighted. With a delighted look on his face, he went downstairs. Daniel had been waiting for him downstairs. Seeing his younger brother walking down the stairs step by step, the golden sunlight outside the window fell on him, making his snow-white skin glow. When Oliver returned home, he was extremely thin. After staying at home for so long, although he hadn't gained much weight, his complexion had indeed become much rosier. He had his hair cut a couple of days ago and groomed himself neatly, wearing a windbreaker and a shirt. He lost his greenness and looked long-legged and slender-waisted. He managed to make walking down a flight of stairs look like a catwalk on a fashion show. Andrew stood in front of Daniel with a big smile and said, "Brother, am I handsome?" Daniel ruffled his hair, similar to the way one would ruffle a golden retriever's fur. Andrew leaned back and shouted, "Brother, my hair! I spent so much time styling it." Daniel felt a strange twinge of jealousy in his heart and unkindly commented, "Where did you learn to use hairspray? A kid trying to act like an adult." Andrew grinned and said, "I stole yours." Daniel pretended to hit him. Andrew ducked and quickly slipped outside the door, shouting, "Emma! Look, look, brother wants to hit me. Are you going to do something about it?" The named Emma smiled and said, "I won't intervene. Those who steal should have their hands slapped." The principle that stealing should be punished by slapping the hands is something even a woman with only a junior high school education understands. However, James, a high-achieving student, doesn't seem to get it and keeps pestering Andrew. On the way to Xingyun to record a song, he sent many more line messages. The main content was still to persuade Andrew to be kind, offer a helping hand, and save others. Since he was bored anyway, Andrew simply found amusement in watching his performance. 061 sensed something was off. He's being overly persistent. It's so obvious who is right and who is wrong in this matter. He has no standing to ask you for help. Andrew lazily propped his chin and looked at the roadside trees outside the window, replying, "Yeah. Why is he so persistent?" 6-1. "Do you know something?" Andrew said, "Teacher, it's me who's asking the question." 061 thought for a moment and immediately realized. James has a weakness in Amelia's hands. He has to help Amelia suppress this. Otherwise, once Amelia tells their parents about it, your involvement will surely be mentioned. Then his secret of being gay won't be able to be hidden. He should have also approached Sky, but was turned away. That's why he's desperately trying to grab onto you as a lifesaver. Andrew enthusiastically cheered. So that's how it is. 061 couldn't help laughing and kind of wanted to ruffle his hair like Daniel would. But James is really talkative, just like a duck with a big mouth. Daniel, who was driving, looked at Andrew in the rear view mirror. "Your phone has been buzzing the whole way." Andrew casually said, "Since the last live stream, the staff of that live streaming platform have been contacting me, hoping I'll sign a contract." "Daniel, have you told Lucy?" Andrew obediently replied, "No. I don't understand contracts, so I didn't sign. I just added the staff online to ask about the situation first." Daniel glanced at his younger brother, who seemed to have grown up overnight. He was very happy but still pretended to be cold. "Got it. Show me the contract later." Andrew, "Okay." As they were talking, another line message from James came in. After watching the show for so long, Andrew thought it was rather unkind to ignore him, so he decided to respond to him. "Please tell her that if she receives a subpoena, she should collect it in time. Otherwise, she will be considered to have voluntarily waived the right to defend herself." This response seemed to have hurt James. He kept silent for a long time before asking, "How can Amelia face people like this?" Andrew replied gently, "It's okay. I believe she will get out of the shadow sooner or later. Those netizens don't know the situation and are just having a senseless argument. As long as she pulls out the network cable, no one can hurt her." These were the words James once said to Oliver, who was involved in the plagiarism scandal. Now Andrew modified them slightly and threw them back at him. James' reply was obviously full of anger. "It's easy for you to say." Andrew said, "Of course it's easy for me." Andrew added, "I'm not the defendant." After this message, James didn't send any new messages. Due to the increasing feelings of uneasiness, anger, and unwillingness, by the time Andrew arrived at Nebula, James' regret value had exceeded 60. Actually, 061 was quite happy. After all, for the hosts he had accompanied before, the data increased little by little. Andrew had earned nearly 50 points within a day. The speed of increase had broken all the records that 061 knew. 061 said, "This time you've passed." The teacher decides to give some rewards to the serious students. "What do you want?" 061's smiling voice was really pleasant. Even after being bound for so long, whenever Andrew heard him speak, he couldn't help but recommend him to become an anchor. He had reason to believe that even if 061 was to dub a loach, it would be a charming loach. Thinking of 009 who came to mooch off a meal yesterday, Andrew had a sudden idea. "Let me see what you look like."